Welcome to Rapture Recovery Big Book Step Study Program of Action. This week we are going to read A Vision for You, which is located on page 151. So go ahead and read the literature, highlight it, and circle it. We are out of the steps, so we're not going to state the step right now that we're going to be working on. This is actually a vision for you, but we're going to do a quick review. We started in the preface. They celebrated the consistency of the program. The forward to the first edition, they talked about why anonymity is our prized possession. We did a gratitude list on our spiritual journey since we're on a new one, and we want to take all those gratitudes with us. In the forward to the second edition, they gave us all kinds of fun facts of where they got their sources for the information and how the steps are outlined in the big book and why they're outlined in a certain way and how they're outlined. In the preface, or in the forward to the third edition, we celebrate the rise of women, and I hope by this point you have been attending some women meetings. In the forward to the fourth edition, we talk about the technology in the fellowship and why we are where we are. In the doctor's opinion, we discussed how and why alcoholism is a disease. We did our very first drink inventory. We made a stop over at Bill's Story. That was our first experience, strength, and hope of one of our founders. We discussed how alcohol had taken a daily part of our day. We talked about how it's an important part of our life. We talk about Ebby Thatcher. We do a friends inventory. We start doing some of the pre-work for our fourth step. Then we do an unmanageability exercise, again setting us up for our fourth step. Then we go to there's a solution, and they're telling us that how to utilize our fellowship, what meetings to attend, how can we stay away from the first drink. You're going to need some sober contacts, and you're going to need to schedule some time for sobriety. Then by this time, we may have forgotten that we're an alcoholic, so they need to tell us more about alcoholism. They need us to know that there are different kinds of alcoholics, but this is a solution for all alcoholics, even heavy drinkers. We talk about the obsession of the mind. We have a fun time and a little drunk-a-log by discussing the 5 worst things we did when we were alcoholically drinking. That wrapped up our step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Then we went to We Agnostics, which started our step 2, came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We did a gratitude list on God. We referred to the bedevilments in this section of the big book. We understand that this is what our current life looks like without a spiritual solution, and we're still going to have to deal with some of these until we can apply a spiritual solution. Then we go to how it works, which starts us off in step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him, how we're going to turn ourselves over, we're going to turn our difficulties over, that we want people to be a witness to our sobriety journeys, and God is going to do this for us. Then we go to step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And so we have our worksheets here that we're going to be able to look back on forever. Then the one different thing we do in our step 4 here is really do an evaluation of what we did in the step 4, what it would have looked like if we would have invited God into it. Do we see any patterns? We talked about our fears. What does our past sex conduct look like, and what is a sound ideal for future relationships? I hope that at this point you've had some benefit of referring to the sound ideal for relationships and pinpointing, like when you're having an issue in a relationship that maybe one of those items are not being met. Then we go into action, which is a new part of literature, and that's step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. We were engaged on a life and death errand. We reviewed our first 5 steps, and we had some time with some other fellowship members. If this was your first time, congratulations. I know that was a great experience for you. If you are multiple years of sobriety and this was just an activity where you could get together in the fellowship and kind of talk about some progress you've made on your 4th step, or some issues or living amends you're still making in your 4th step, that was a great time. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. We went on a defect character scavenger hunt. I gave you a month-long diagram here to kind of search for patterns. What are your main character defects? Then we journaled our step 7 prayer. We humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. We had some daily accountability as far as step 7 goes with our community that you have created here and in our fellowship. Then we went over to step 8, made a list of all the persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. A lot of these are going to be living amends with action items that you're going to continue to live. Then we went into section 3, which are steps 10 through 12, which this is really the design for living. You never graduate from these steps. You just keep on living them. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. We started pause, pondering, and praying. Then we went to step 11, and we have an activity sheet here of how we can actually, some activities, some program of action we can actually implement outside of our meetings to meet God outside of our meetings, as well as we meet him in our meetings. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out. Then we spent a week in working with others, which is step 12, and it's my favorite step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. One fun fact about this step, we did the activity sheet of finding all kinds of ways that we can serve and work with other alcoholics, is this step that is not actually stated verbatim in working with others. That first part of the sentence is left out, having had a spiritual awakening. So I believe that your spiritual awakening really happens when you start working with others. That's just something that I've said in a lot of different times that I've shared and had a lot of feedback on that. Then the last page of that workbook section, we're asking you to write your story. So when somebody asks you, you have something prepped up. Again, we're in a program of action. Be secure in your sobriety and have something to share in a timely manner. Then we went to section 4 and we worked with the afterwards. We really tried to use these pieces of literature and pull them into our current day application, which is a little bit challenging. So I pray that you raised up to the challenge. I pray that you did these activity sheets. Now we're moving on to a vision for you. So that again is on page 151. So there are a couple highlights. I have my vision for you is highlighted, squared. There are tons of notes in my side marks here. And it's very exciting. You're going to hear this, a vision for you, in a lot of the meetings you go to. They actually read the last part of this book. So for your activity this week, I think it's another great time to journal, because whenever we write something down, we're taking left brain activity, we're throwing it through a conduit, a connection with our right brain activity. So this is what the last 2 paragraphs say. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. Okay, so we're going to remember that, right? These are all just suggestions. So we're focusing on progress, not perfection. So we're going to fall short. That's okay. This is all just suggestive. But they are gentle commands, because we do have people that have had success going to any lengths and doing things that they didn't want to do. So we also remember that half measures availed us nothing. So even though it is suggestive and we're going to make mistakes, and you're going to make mistakes like out of default because you don't have all the information. And God knows this. We do the best we can with what we have. That second sentence, we realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. So in sobriety, someone told me, always be in step work. Either be doing step work with someone or be sponsoring someone. And that's how he exposes more and more and more to us. That's how we dig deeper, right? Is we do the 6th step time and time again. We read the literature with the sponsee time and time again. And every single time I read literature, God pops something else out. And whether it's an experience that that I've had in sobriety or reminding me of an experience I had before sobriety, He will reveal to us more. Ask Him in your morning meditation. So again, we're assuming that we're doing morning meditations. What you can do each day for the man who is still sick. Okay, so remember when working with others, this is kind of a summary. It tells us nothing will relieve the obsession to drink than working with other alcoholic. So here they're giving us instructions to do this still, right? Take your phone calls, make your phone calls, and go to meetings. The answers will come if your own house is in order. So we have a goal of keeping our own house in order. How do we do that? We apply all these principles in all of our affairs. So that's when we did To the Wives and To the Family afterwards, right? We went there, they gave us some tools, we did an activity. So how can we try to keep our own thought process in order? By a program of action. I need to have large goals that have small action items because I can't do too much at one time. But obviously you cannot submit something you haven't got, right? So God wants us to submit a spiritual journey. So we need to focus on our spiritual journey. Our programming in the fellowship is not the spiritual journey. You need to find your relationship with God outside of these 1-hour meetings that are filled with people. It's hard to focus on God when you're focused on people. And then there's another whole thing I say. We're either people-pleasing or God-pleasing. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Now, remember, in our step 3 prayer, we are going to want to bear a witness, of His will and not my will. So again, we see how this is a summary of all the work that we've done so far. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. That's kind of our step 2, right? We had to find our higher power. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. There's your step 4, 5, and 10, right? Because whenever you're doing a 10th step, you're always going to need to reach out to somebody in the fellowship to have accountability and get another experience, shrink, and hope. Clear away the wreckage of the past. There's your step 8 and 9. Give freely of what you find and join us. That's your step 12. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. That's your 4th dimension you read about there. And you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. And I've heard a whole meeting on this word trudge. Go look up the definition. It's exciting. This is going to be a hard journey of recovery that is going to have heavenly treasures. So we're not going to get all of our treasures here on earth. May God bless you and keep you until then. They're pretty much giving me a promise that God will bless and keep me until then. What's until then? That is when we go to our spiritual home. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey of this step study. God has done for you what you could not do for yourself. You have access to time management. You have prioritized your sobriety. You have created a plan of action. You have completed action items that took left brain information and moved it over to your right brain. And I pray that you will feel the Spirit within you to serve in this program and have a spiritual experience. Thank you.